I am very late to the game, but not that long ago, I had a wonderful time at SGF, and I thought I would finally tell you about all of the games I saw at the event, starting with Onimusha. Onimusha was not a game I expected to even preview during Summer Games Fest, but Capcom let me sneak behind closed doors to check it out, and I am very glad I did. This build did seem a bit early given the fact that the graphics weren't mind-blowing or anything, but the gameplay looked superb. My main takeaway was that the combat looked cool. Guards are contextual, so if you parry just right, you'll do a unique parry and it will result in a gory finish each time. And that will add a lot of variety to the gameplay overall. Imagine a unique animation based on how you've attacked or defended, and that will allow you to see enough variety that will make it never get stale. Those are the kind of little gameplay treats that I love. And if you get good enough, you can even chain these executions together for an extremely rewarding display of your skill. Enemy variety was great too. Not only did you have your standard fodder that you'll basically one-hit kill with your skills, but we also encountered some fat flying orb guys that will absorb XP and then shoot it back at you. You can use your grapple hook once you've defeated those characters and use them basically like a bomb to throw at enemies, and it was all hands off, by the way, so it was very fun to see, and I can't wait to play it for myself. Another enemy later on in the game had the ability to move incredibly fast, and the only way to defeat them was to time your attack precisely to behead them or cut their body entirely in half down the middle. In terms of exploration, they also showed off Genma Vision that would tease hidden puzzles and new locations to find, sort of like Batman Vision, but not quite. Well, in one fight, you would actually need to rip up parts of the house to use the defense and then throw back at the enemy to break or knock back their barrier, and then that would open them up to attack. That is also another example of sort of how they're using the environment in these games. And the cutscenes, which are great, they'll unveil story elements that are introduced to you just as you sort of explore the world and unlock more and more pieces of the map. Your gauntlet, the thing on your arm, it actually guides you as you explore, and it gives you hints as to where you can go next. But it also banters with you, not in an annoying way like some other games that we've seen, but in sort of a fun way where it's tongue-in-cheek and you do get to have a little bit of fun with that item. The game takes place in Japan, of course, and there's some really interesting folklore integrated into the game too, like a family temple based off the Genmar who used to throw their family off the temple. The developer said they tried to recreate a 1600s look to help you feel more time period accurate. And this was the location of a climactic boss fight that had us face off against a character named Bayakue. I probably butchered that. You get to see the full extent of abilities here with parries that can damage a boss and allow you to pick a specific location to damage, or you can simply damage them directly. And overall, I left the Onimusha demo impressed. I really want to play it now. I was happy to see what they're doing in terms of combat, and if they can keep this up by giving us plenty to tackle and use our cool abilities with, then I can't wait to see more. Dying Light the Beast was a highlight for my time at SGF. Being given free reign to take on the open world with all of my abilities was a lot of fun. Having dabbled with the previous Dying Light games, the Beast was mostly familiar to me. I used unique weapons, messed around with the new crafting system, and even used guns here and there to eviscerate any human enemies getting in my path. You also have like this cool super ability, like you basically go Kratos Rage and then nuke everything. That was fun too. The only part that kind of surprised me was how quickly I picked up the basic mechanics. There were some night sections that encouraged me to like be more stealthy and sneak around, but for the most part, it was a pretty easy game. We got to find components and build a flamethrower. That was pretty overpowered. I was sure to stay on the rooftops to avoid, the fodder zombies, so to speak. And when I was running across the open world, nothing really challenged me. You could even drive across it if you wanted to. And also, to be fair, maybe I just didn't really care about survival. I just was having a lot of fun popping off. So there's that. There was one section, though, admittedly, that I found kicking my butt and that was the final boss encounter. There's this big lumbering boss you fight at the very end, and for some reason, I ended up having some trouble here. Previously, I had wrecked everything in my path, but I got stuck for a bit until finally clearing this challenging enemy. It wasn't so much that it was hard, it was more that my character's dodge was like, I was moving the joystick and he wasn't dodging where I wanted him to. He would dodge either forward or backwards when I wanted him to go left or right quickly. And that was the biggest problem. It was me. It's all my fault. But anyway, that's probably on me more than anything. Beyond that, however, you should feel empowered when you play Dying Light for the most part. And with the exception of the poorly timed dodges on my part, or bosses that maybe they're overpowered, maybe they're not, that will probably give you some meat to dive into when you're building your character, collecting weapons, and exploring the world. Overall, great time, and I can't wait to see more. Mouse is the game you've probably seen making the rounds that plays a bit of a spoof on Micky Mouse, because they did the entire game in that Micky Mouse Steamboat Willy style. I've been interested in it for that reason alone, but I did not expect that the gameplay would be as good as I saw behind closed doors. It reminded me a lot of old school Doom or Duke Nukem, but with some interesting weapons like a turpentine gun that would melt enemies in your path, literally because it's turpentine in their ink. Enemies also had some good AI abilities. They would actually try and swarm you, and they weren't completely brain dead. I've been excited about it, but what I did not expect is that the gameplay is seemingly quite good already. They had several different weapons to choose from, mostly your standard stuff like a pistol or shotgun, but they also have finger guns as a power-up, and the turpentine weapon that will erase things from existing. I think there's still a worry that the gimmick of looking like Micky Mouse will wear off quickly, and then what will you be left with? Well, for some reason, it really reminded me of Duke Nukem games of old. You have strafing and a lot of weapons to try out, but on top of that, you'll encounter a lot of interesting characters who will give you some hints about what you're supposed to be doing or where you're supposed to go, and they'll advance the overall story. I think this is where you might end up finding that there is some interest. And they did confirm that Troy Baker is doing the voice, so that will be something I will quite enjoy. These characters are quite stupid, sometimes the bad guys anyway, but that adds some subtle humor to situations. The main mission we got to see was one where the main character learns of an assassination attempt at an opera, and we need to figure out how to infiltrate the theater and prevent anyone from being murdered. It was a good mix of platforming, combat, some silly interactions with NPCs that give you a chuckle, but the combat arenas themselves were quite interesting. The theater, for example, because it's an opera, is constantly like changing its shape, and then enemies would be hidden within the walls. And I thought that was a fun way to sort of approach the situation. And then you would, of course, kill anybody who got in your way. The one concern I brought up with the team was that the overall trick they play on you is that you would be like sneaking through some pipes, and then you would fall through the pipes and they'd be like, haha, you got to go a different way. And I was like, I think that might get old real quick, but they seem to indicate that it's just for this level because of the nature of trickery with opera and such, and the movement of the level and all of those things. So I'll be honest though, I was really impressed by the gunplay. I was worried it would seem simple, and maybe it is, but when you add the kicks and power-ups like finger guns and weapons into the mix that are unique, it seemed more fleshed out than I expected. I love the art style, look, and can't wait to see more. Wuchang Fallen Feathers is probably exactly what you think it is. It's a Souls-like game where you'll need to perfect your gameplay, upgrade your gear, and clear the level from larger-than-life enemies that will stomp you, just like any Souls-like would. That said, there are some combat mechanics that seem to really stand out for me because you have several stances you can use. I'm probably saying the wrong term, but Wuchang does some interesting things with that because the combat that I haven't seen pulled off any other way works really well here. You get all of these different abilities and weapons you can swap to on the fly, and that creates these really interesting combat arenas where the boss might shift and you'll need to completely change your play style with just the press of a few buttons to tackle that situation. The game also looks very pretty, at least what I played of it, and I wish I had more time to relax and enjoy the environment and story elements that you don't really get to at an event like SGF. I did really like the combat though, and had a good time in my session. I just never feel like I get a full grasp of the ins and outs of a game like this, especially during a short gameplay segment, but I do think there's a lot of meat here and something for fans of the Souls-like genre who are hungry for more. Spine. This was a big surprise. I am a sucker for action games, and Spine really surprised me. You play as a cybernetically enhanced lady who can do some interesting things with murdering people, and of course is an overpowered gun-wielding badass. It wasn't so much that the gameplay was mind-blowingly impressive or anything. It's just gunplay at the end of the day, but it adds a level of style that I like. It's still very early on, but Spine seems like it's bringing back those stylized executions that something like the Punisher game from the OG Xbox days did really, really well. Overall, I remember having a blast with this one because of that. It's still very early, but it uses the Batman-like combat abilities mixed with gunplay and rewards you for succeeding with really cool kill counts. Think Batman Arkham gameplay, but with gun fatalities mixed in. And all of that is mixed with that old school Punisher vibe, which sounds kind of like a good mix. The team really needs to work out a few of the kinks, and the boss fight was pretty clunky, but overall, this was honestly one of my top games of the show, and I can't wait to see where they take it from here. Directive 8020 was just sitting on the floor of SGF, and I did not have a demo booked, but I got to take a seat and play away. Long story short, this is one of those choose your own adventure style games, for the most part anyway, and it looks really awesome. The one note I did put down was that the visuals were incredible, so take that for what you will. Mainly, you were given the choice to murder your way out of a situation via the dialogue options, or you could let a character live if you take the right dialogue path. I, of course, went full murder and just enjoyed watching the horror on everybody's face as I continue being a terrible person in these style of games. Beyond that, though, there was a very short stealth section where I snuck in between corridors as a lumbering monster stalked the hallways, and it was basic, but I love the atmosphere and acting overall. I'm just not sure about the gameplay just yet because we didn't really get a lot of hands-on time with that part. After all, this is the team who made Until Dawn and The Quarry, so if you like those games, this is equally as great with fewer performance issues, at least in my experience, and that sounds darn good to me. Mistfall Hunter. So Mistfall Hunter was a bit of a weird one. Long story short, this is sort of a Dark Souls style game that has you entering into the abyss and trying to escape unscathed by using a bell from a weird spirit creature. It was pretty fun, and it had you wield either a traditional sword and board, ranger, or badonk weapon, should you so choose, but it also felt very early. The demo was fine, but there were a few technical hiccups here and there, and that said, I do think it's interesting, and I think people who are looking for like Dark Souls mixed with an extraction shooter might find something of interest here. I'm just a little unsure about where it's at currently. It is in beta right now, and I am a novice with the extraction Dark Souls games, but I could see that audience giving it a shot. Shinobi, releasing August 29, 2025. This was a surprise. So when I originally showed up for my appointment, I was supposed to play Demon Slayer something something Chronicles 2, aka an anime game I admittedly don't know anything about. Instead, I was told that I could play Shinobi, and I was like, that's not what you booked me. Whatever, I'll play Shinobi. Well, the confusion was there, but I admit I was really digging Shinobi. This is a highlight of my time at SGF. It reminded me of the original Ninja Gaiden on the NES, which I freaking loved. And it starts out slow, giving you the basics and teaching you how to weave in and out of combat by doing large leaps across the screen, counterattacks, and all that good stuff. And man, what a fun game. Shinobi is looking beautiful, but the build I played was from the start, and it seems like this game is basically done. They were giving players free reign, and the person next to me was like way further into the game, it seemed. So as you encounter enemies who will each offer like a unique challenge, like maybe one character will shoot a bullet just in this one spot, and you'll have to figure out, okay, how do I parry that and then kill the other guy with a different ability on the other side? So you have to figure out how to use the tools at your disposal, like a mini super that will shoot a like insta-kill fireball with something nice like using the marked enemy to further traverse the level, right? It's really, really cool, and I liked that aspect of the game. The demo ended with a large boss, which gave me the chance to use my Uber super ability, but Shinobi already left its impression. I didn't need to see more. It was exactly what I hoped for a game like this, and I wanted to play more. Crimson Desert. I'm going to be straight with you. I was not scheduled to see this game either, but Crimson Desert looks insane. An interesting combat system that is not like Dark Souls. It has a beautiful world, and I want to see it come out and steal the show. That said, after playing it, I do think there are core issues that need to be worked out before you or anyone else will absolutely fall in love with it. Mainly, there were these like visual issues that I noticed consistently, and they were kind of distracting from everything else you were supposed to be doing, because there's this really entrenched combat system you're going to have to learn. They're throwing us a few hours in, and like I've never touched the game before. I didn't really play any of the other games from the studio, so there was that to deal with, and that was a little bit challenging. But Crimson Desert is already looking and sounding great on paper. And based on what I played and experienced, it was a lot of fun. So the line was out the door for this station, and I had to like book in advance. And then I got this really short window to play it, like 30, 40 minutes. And then I had to run because my other appointment started. But anyway, Crimson Desert is looking and sounding great on paper, and everybody was really, really hyped to see it. Everybody who's played it had a good time with it. But I just don't think a venue like SGF is the place to demo it. Here's what I got to do. I got to take controls for a bit and walk from cutscene A to cutscene B before the demoist took over. And then they let me go into the crazy battlefield with like 1,000 characters on the screen at once. And I got to actually try out the combat a little bit. He was trying to teach me how to do the combat, and I got to nuke some towers. And then, you know, the demoist would take the controller away, and then they would do some stuff to set me up for the next thing. And I understand why they did that, but it doesn't make for a great experience on the show floor, in my opinion. Now, this game has a ton of hype behind it. I love that you can fly from the top of a mountain to a location somewhere far in the distance. You can go anywhere on the map and explore. You can do these superpowers that have you shoot up in the air and then target a weak point on an enemy, or you can just ride a horse. It's really, really fun. I just worry because I recently played not Crimson Desert, but I played another game that had this level of hype behind it that unfortunately had some challenges, and that was Chrono Odyssey. Chrono Odyssey had all the basics. It had all the stuff on paper that seemed like it would work really well. And I don't want to see the team behind this game fall into that trap, because you only get one chance to make a great first impression. And I think the combat is solid. I think the premise is solid, but I think there are some concerning things about how they demo it on the show floor like that. And I kept this one for last because there's a ton of positive momentum behind this thing. I just need hands-on time, not on a show floor. So excited about that one, but those are my overall thoughts. Honorable mentions. Now, I do want to give some props to Monster Hunter Mobile, which just launched Season 6 into the Gloam. They introduced some new weapons, like the musical one that Monster Hunters use, and there's some really, really cool gear that you can get, but I just don't know enough about this mobile game to do it justice, so I won't try. Beyond that, I also was given a glimpse into the Final Fantasy VII Magic card decks that you can have face off against each other and do battle. That is out now. It's Magic, but with Final Fantasy VII. It works really well and was really fun. I literally got to play Magic one time for my demo. I was guided the whole time, and I won my first game, and they're like, all right, that's the demo. So if you like Magic and you like Final Fantasy, this one's kind of a no-brainer. You're probably going to be checking it out anyway. And I did have fun playing it. And I think it's definitely one of those games that might have you come in and play it, especially if you're a Final Fantasy fan. I did get to try out the Pac-Man platformer, which was basically like a Metroidvania, but with a grapple arm to traverse higher into higher locations, a parry mechanic, and a giant robot mech you can summon at any time to either fight or eat your fallen foes for XP and components to build things in the future. I only got like 5 minutes of playtime with this one, but it was also fun, and it reminded me a lot of the Shinobi game I had played earlier that day. And then finally, there was this game Frosthaven, which I was given a demo for. This was given to me virtually, and it showed off a turn-based action game. It has a pretty good story and some interesting gameplay elements, but I just didn't have the time to sink my teeth into it and give you a proper assessment. Frosthaven is based off of a board game, but this dark fantasy RPG is more about setting up the battlefield in typical Baldur's Gate style and executing on your plan. I should say D&D versus Baldur's Gate, you know what I mean. Anyway, it was fun while I played it, but again, this is not something you can learn in a few minutes. It was one of those games where like you need to just dedicate a ton of time to, and I didn't have adequate time to do that. So honorable mention, if you're into that sort of game, what I did play seemed fun. Anyway, that's what I got to play at SGF. I had been putting off making this video for so long, so thank you for putting up with me as I finally get around to making it, and I hope you check out some of the games on my list. Did I miss anything that you saw at SGF or you have seen lately that you're hyped for in 2025 or 2026? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to know when my content goes live. I do greatly appreciate all of you watching. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the members, Chris Ferretti, Phil Aroni, Spingater, and Aries EMS. If you want to support my independent venture, you can do so patreon.com/SaveStatePlus or by becoming a member here on YouTube. Just click that join button. It's right down there. Before I go, check out my preview of Resident Evil, which I also saw at SGF. It was not included in this video. I just made it a whole bespoke thing for it. And I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.